Global in New York, followed by a presentation by Beatriz Hernandez Dufour from Copenhagen's KV Info. Both are internationally recognized experts in the fields of mentoring and labor force integration. We're delighted to have them with us today, and the session will end with a question and answer period. And now, please join me in welcoming Sherazade Langlade, Managing Director of Upwardly Global in New York. Hello, Sherazade. Welcome to Cities of Migration.
Thank you, Kim, so much for having me today, and welcome to all of our participants as well. I'm very excited and pleased to join us. So I just want to kick off by sharing a little bit about Upwardly Global and just share from the outset. I'll be sharing really from our experience in working with the business sector and corporations and what we've seen to be really good integration practices and what the business sector can do to help with the integration of skilled immigrant professionals. So what we do is we're a nonprofit organization based in the United States that helps highly skilled immigrant professionals rebuild their careers in the U.S. in their professional field, as well as also work directly with companies to help them benefit from this hidden talent pool in the U.S. And I wanted to share a quote that I think really just embodies the experience of the job seekers that we see, but also how companies can benefit and how they can react. So Giovanna is a senior HR professional from Colombia. And when we first met with her, she said, as an immigrant in this country, the American dream was boiling in my blood. But once I got here, I realized things wouldn't be easy as I thought. Language barrier, cultural settings, no friends, which meant no past, nobody knew me, and I did not know anybody. And this highlights for me how employers can really solve the problem. So she states that the American dream was boiling in her blood, which really speaks to the ambition and determination that we see from so many of the job seekers, the skilled immigrant job seekers that we work with, and thinking, I have experience, I have skills, I have education, my transition back into my field should be relatively easy. And she realized that actually she was quite invisible to the American employers that she was trying to reach, that her experience based on her job searching experience really didn't matter. And this is where Upwardly Global really tries to build a bridge. It's from the individual job seeker that's trying to reconnect back in their field to the employers to help them see and understand that foreign training and experience can really be very valuable and beneficial to them, and that they can be the ones to open the door for someone like Giovanna. So I'm really happy to share that Giovanna is working back in her field. Now, the other reason that this matters to us is because in the United States, there's real changes happening in our demographics. So we recognize that there's a potential lost opportunity for employers and individuals. In the U.S., immigrants are the drivers of our population growth and our labor force, and it's estimated that by 2050, which seems like a long time from now, but really isn't too far away, 100% of the United States workforce growth will be from immigrants or children of immigrants. We also know that from 2000 to 2005, the U.S. saw a 34% increase in the number of skilled immigrants arriving into the United States, and that's expected to grow. So immigrants are a talent pool for employers to benefit from and gain from, but they're also an individual consumer and business space, and that's something that just helps when connecting with employers about what are the reasons that you should care about the immigrant population. In terms of what are the real barriers, some of these I'm sure our participants on the phone have already addressed or faced. And what we've learned is that being an organization uniquely focused on skilled immigrant integration into the professional workforce, these are the key barriers that we aim to break down. And those are being a lack of networks and mentors and cultural differences in the job search process for the job seekers. And for employers, it's really misperceptions of the immigrant talent, lack of experience or understanding evaluating foreign talent, and focusing on other areas of diversity. So again, this is where we try to build the bridge. And I will share with you how we do it, specifically focused on how we partner with our corporate partners. So how do we do this? Our focus is twofold. It's on traditional human resources, if you will, that focuses on existing systems and practices that are already built inside of a business or a corporation, and it's on the informal human resources practices, meaning the informal networks that exist inside of companies. It's the classic example of meeting someone at an event and then having an employee at your company walk the resume down the hall, if you will, and say, hey, I just met somebody that we should really be looking at or connecting to. So I'll share with you the 4 practices in a brief case study, and depending on the business, we've had some of our partners do all of it, and we've had some of them start with one and transition to another. These are not in order of priority, they're just the 4 different approaches. So they can be standalone or they can be comprehensive, and they all yield, from what we've seen, positive results for our partners. So the first approach that we take when looking at skilled immigrant integration and helping a business help develop careers for individuals is employee engagement. Our focus here is to identify existing networks at the organization, such as employee resource groups or business teams. The reason why is that those existing groups already have something common in purpose, and they have a solid membership base. So the employee engagement program that we bring to companies is really based around skilled volunteer opportunities, such as serving as a mock interviewer or as a mentor, as a peer mentor to someone. What we've learned that's really important is that company employees need to be engaged in supporting the integration of skilled immigrants and the retention of skilled immigrants in the workplace, especially because we know that many companies rely on their existing employees to bring in great talent. So again, going back to those informal networks. And skilled volunteer opportunities also allow for a job seeker and a potential hiring manager to meet directly, which helps facilitate the hiring process and creates that ambassadorship that we know is necessary. On paper, it's easy to say, as a business, we're focused on skilled immigrant integration or on this new pool of talent that maybe we haven't focused on before, but you have to get individuals across the organization from the very top to the very bottom and everybody in between to really understand the value and understand the purpose, which brings me to the second approach or strategy that we take, which is workforce education. So again, this is not presented in order of sequence or priority, but workforce education for us is simply sharing data, tips, and tools. So it's trainings, it's seminars, it's webinars with employers and their workforce about why to focus on skilled immigrants and how to do it and who to engage. In training, we always aim to provide experiential and safe learning environments. What we've learned is that many employees understand the value. We hardly ever come across individuals inside of a company that say, I don't think that this is a good pool of talent. What we come across, though, is how do I ever overcome some of the perceived risks that may exist, risks related to cultural differences, to language abilities, to organizational fit, to validating prior experience. Those are all the issues that a company has to be willing to address beforehand in order to really meet with success and make progress. You have to be willing to have conversations around some pretty delicate issues, look internally as to what those perceptions are, and identify where they may or may not be a fit for your business. The next approach, our third approach, is bringing the talent to companies and businesses. So at Upwardly Global, we meet with hundreds of skilled immigrants each year, and we essentially develop a pipeline for our employer partners. And our employer partners range in size. It's the small business with 5 employees to multinational corporations with over 150,000 employees across the globe. These are strategies that we've seen work in both of those types of environments, as well as the medium-sized organizations that fit in between. What we do here is we really serve as front-end recruiters in some way. We screen and we vet candidates for our partners, which helps take some of that subjectivity or risk of misperceptions out early in the process. And we go back to our job seeker clients that are working in their fields. We call them alumni. or individuals that we worked with that are now back in their professional field, and we encourage them and work with them to either encourage their employers to hire another skilled immigrant, or if they are in a hiring position themselves, to hire as well. As we all know, networks are key to professional development, professional growth, and when it comes down to it, in many cases, the hiring process. So once a skilled immigrant is hired and successful in an organization, we hope and we expect that that individual will then be the catalyst for opening the doors for others like them with similar experiences. Again, trying to help dissolve some of those perceptions around risk. All it takes is one person to come in and to say, you hired me, I fit, my language abilities are fine, I've been able to build a network, and I can bring in a new network that you might never have tapped into before, which starts to create the momentum. And lastly, it's around marketing and corporate social responsibility, our last approach, if you will. What we've learned is that if one corporation or business is doing something and is being seen as a leader, then other businesses want to do it as well. It's a little bit, I think, of looking at your neighbor and knowing your environment and saying, why are they doing that, and how are they getting this great talent? So marketing the success of the initiatives and the success of the talent is important internally and externally. Externally, it's great for brand building, and I'll give you an example on our next slide to really state to the larger community that you are an employer of choice. Internally, it's really important because many employees, from what we've seen here in the United States, is that even if they are born in the United States, they are very open to the skilled immigrant story because it's their story. Their parents, it was their parents that came to the United States for a better life. It was their childhood friend. It is their spouse. In the U.S., we all have an immigrant story. It may not be all very recent for us, but people really do relate to the idea of trying to just rebuild a life and contribute back into their new home and their new society. And then as we discussed a bit earlier, demographics are changing, so this is also a business opportunity. And what we found amongst our corporate partners is that not only are they really excited about the skilled immigrant integration because they're able to tap into a new source of talent that really helps them not only with their immediate needs, it helps them if they're looking to expand globally, and then they have somebody in-house that already speaks the language, knows the culture, or knows the region that they might be trying to do business, but also helps them locally with some of their new business opportunities related to just the immigrant community overall. So I wanted to share just a brief case study about one of our partners, JPMorgan Chase. JPMorgan Chase is, I believe at this time it changes, it seems, the third largest bank in the world. They've been a partner with us since 2006. And I'll just walk you through the process of what happened. We were able to connect with their head of HR and shared with him what we were doing, and he said, this makes sense. We are a global business organization. We have 150,000 employees globally, and simply said, if this is a pool of talent that we are not targeting and not reaching, we need to. We're too big to not pay attention to even the smallest pools of talent that exist. And because they're global, they also recognize that the culture and the language skills would be helpful. So I've highlighted some of the bullets on the slide, but I just want to share a couple brief examples of some of the key lessons that they did that we thought were very innovative. Using the skills-based volunteering, which is back to the employee engagement approach, really, really works. Again, this brings sort of two different audiences together. One that the employees that sign up to do a mock interview are usually sympathetic already. Again, they have that immigrant story or experience not too far in their past, and they want to help. Or they're just really excited about meeting people from all over the world, and they realize that this is a great opportunity for me to gain some culture or cross-cultural interaction. So it allowed for the company to build those informal mentoring, those informal networking relationships that then again has that person walking down the hall and saying, I just met with somebody in an Upwardly Global mock interview that we have to meet. This person is exactly what we're looking for. Yes, they have an accent. We can overcome that because of the value they bring to us. Those have turned out to be really strong in terms of hiring. Letting the immigrant community know. So you'll see that there's a flyer on your slide that says JP Morgan Chase is making its workforce upwardly global. They put these up in every single one of their bank branches, their retail branches that were located in a large immigrant community. They wanted to signal to the immigrant community that if you are skilled and you are immigrant, please come and join this team, or at least we're willing to look at your credentials, and you won't hear, oh, you don't have U.S. experience, we can't help you. So again, sending a strong message to the community that they were an employer of choice. And the last example I'll share was very interesting, where a business team said, I have great recruiters and I have great managers, and one of the things that we need to do always is to continue to develop cultural competencies. And one of the ways that they said, or that they put into these individuals' professional development plans, was you have to attend 3 Upwardly Global mock interviews, or you have to mentor an Upwardly Global job seeker. Something that was before completely voluntary was turned into a strategic professional development opportunity for existing employees so that the organization could benefit, which actually turned out it really worked out very well for that specific team as a strategic HR approach, if you will. So those are just some of the highlights of how Upwardly Global has worked with businesses and organizations to not only help them attract and retain skilled immigrants, but also what they've found and shared with us is to develop their own employees. I'm happy to take questions after we hear from Beatrice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Sherazade. Upwardly Global success really is very significant. I believe that the organization started in LA, actually on the west coast of the U.S., and that you now are working in Chicago as well as New York City. And just to give our international audience a sense of how significant that talent pool is, I believe that the percentage of the foreign-born population in New York is around 38%. Or something to that effect.
Of foreign-born in the United States, there's over 1.3 million skilled immigrant professionals that are underemployed or unemployed that simply just want to have the opportunity to work back in their fields.
So that's a tremendous group. Anyways, thank you very much, Sherazade. That was very interesting. And now we're going to introduce you to another perspective from Beatrice. From the KV Info organization in Copenhagen. Welcome, Beatrice.
Well, thank you, Kim, and thank you to the whole team of Cities of Migration for giving us the opportunity to present QuinFo and QuinFo's Mentor Network. And thank you, Sherazade, for a great presentation. And thank you all of you that are with us in this webinar today. I've been given the option to have a question placed to you to vote on. So, Kim, if you will introduce my question, and then I can continue with my presentation.
Yes, here we've got a poll question, and we invite you all to respond to this poll. The question is, a mentee is often looking for a mentor who will champion her, who will assist her to get a job in her field of expertise. Is this type of expectation realistic? So, oh, that's great. I can see lots of people are jumping in to respond. And we'll just spend a few minutes letting those responses come in. That's great. Well, we've got an overwhelming preference at this point for the yes answer. We're looking at about 80%. So we'll just we'll give you a couple of minutes. These poll results are completely confidential. This is and entirely optional. I'm delighted that so many of you are participating. That's great. The numbers are fluctuating. So I think that I'll give you 30 seconds. And so cast your vote now. We've got about 36 responses. It would be great to get 40, a couple more. We're almost there. Okay, we'll close the poll. And we've got 79% yes and 21% no, and I give the presentation back to you, Beatrice.
Well, thank you, and thank you very much for taking my question. I'm quite surprised, but I will go back to this question during my presentation. First, I want to introduce you to the organization I work for. Our name is QINFO, and it's the abbreviation of 3 Danish words: Women, Information, and Research. Our core is a research library, but we offer many other services. We have a web magazine, and we have a database of women experts, and we have an online encyclopedia with the history of Finnish women. And we actually manage a large program on women's rights and equal opportunities in the Middle East. But why going into mentoring? I guess that a lot of you know that the political debate on integration and ethnic minorities in Denmark has been, and it is, very intensive. Back in 2001, QINFO was actually criticized for not doing enough to support immigrant women. So, you know, we have immigrant women coming to our library, and we knew that most of them wanted a job because it was the best way they thought they could integrate into Danish society. And they also complained that it was very difficult to find a job because they didn't have personal networks. So then we started thinking, but what could we do for immigrant women? And especially, what could we do that will not feel patronizing? So if they wanted a job and they didn't have a network, we had a large network of very powerful, very well-educated Danish women, professionals, who use our library, who actually subscribe to our magazine, who are part of our expert database, and who come to all the seminars and conferences that are arranged by QINFO. So that's how we started thinking that we could actually introduce immigrant women to all these women in our network and match them and start some sort of mentoring process. So we started in 2003 with a small group of mentors and mentees in a pilot project. And after a year, in October 2004, the stories, the mentees and the mentors were doing so well that the stories started being reported by the Danish media. And in a year, the program not only consolidated but got awarded 2 national prizes. So we understood that we could do mentoring our own way. So how do we do mentoring? We focus on the mentee. We call the immigrant women mentee, and we focus on her needs and on her dreams. And by focusing on the mentee, we're very different from many other programs where the focus is the mentor. And by focusing on the mentee, we also have particular requirements of our mentors. So our mentors are strong, well-educated, usually very influential Danish women who wants to contribute, give a personal contribution to the integration effort. And what do we require of them? We ask them for good communication skills. We ask them for knowledge of the trends in the labor market in the area of expertise. We ask them for their time and their guidance. But we also ask them to open up their networks for the mentees. And we do this because a lot of them actually have worked outside Denmark and live outside Denmark, and they know what's the importance of having contacts. For instance, the woman in this picture is a former supermodel. Her name is Renee Toft-Simonsen. Renee had lived in Madrid, in New York, and in Paris. And when she came to join the program and we interviewed her, she said, "Oh, I really know what it means to have contacts. If you don't have contacts out there, you cannot make it anywhere." So our mentors are women that would like to open up contacts for their mentee. Apart from that, we have incorporated core feminist values in the definition and the practice of mentoring. What matters to us is that the mentor relationship works and is based on trust, on chemistry and respect. And by trust, I mean confidence. Our mentors and mentees have confidence in CRINFO as an organization, have confidence that they are among peers of equals, and they use confidence to build to team up to get their goals. So we also believe that emotional and social supports are key elements of our model, because it's not only about having an intellectual knowledge of the labor market and society. Sometimes the mentee during the settlement period, she has to address the positive and not so positive issues, and these issues cannot be ignored, and we don't do it. But I think that the real key is that we put a lot of effort at understanding similarities. Our mentees come from very different geographical areas in the world, but they are never the other. They are one of us. They are women. We don't. It's not relevant for us what the mentee eats or what she wears or what's her sexual orientation or her religion. What matters to us is what she can do and will do to empower herself and to keep in contact with other women who are willing to assist her with information and with social support if needed. So even though the prime focus of the majority of our matches are for the mentee to get a job, there are many of our mentees that are not ready to go into the labor market right away. So because sometimes they need to get their Danish, to be better in Danish, to get their qualifications accepted. Sometimes they have personal issues. So they get first social support, and then when they feel that they are ready to go to work, then they get a mentor who can help them with job searching, for instance. So our success is not the number of the mentees who get a job, because they don't have to report to the network if they get a job or not. Our success is measured in the number of couples who are actually having a very good mentoring relationship and who are able to complete a whole cycle in about 1.5 years. And by a cycle, I mean the introduction, the work in the relationship, and then how they will depart, and sometimes how they will redefine their relationship, because most of them end up being friends. And of course, there is the networking part of the program. You know that since the 1970s, the feminist movement have been using network as a political tool, and our mentor network is a feminist network. So I still remember that in 2003, our director, Elisabeth Muller-Jensen, sent a letter for women to join as mentor, and she got from one day to the other 300 replies of women who wanted to act. That's the kind of networking that we have in our program. So we focus on telling positive stories. We have 2 online exhibitions with telling very successful stories of immigrant women and men in Denmark. We have started a political mentor program to try to facilitate the access of immigrant women into local politics. The woman in this picture, Hakima, is the top candidate of one of the political parties here for the municipal elections coming in November, and we are crossing our fingers for her. And today we have around 5,000 members from 125 countries. According to some experts, we are the largest mentor network of this kind in the world. We have 5 offices, 7 years of experience, and a model of mentoring that works. So we're ready to share this with the rest of the world, and we're having an international conference on November 20 and 21st in Copenhagen. I think it will be the perfect setting to find new partners and open new lines of cooperation, and I hope you all will try to join us in Copenhagen. You will be very welcome. You just have to follow this link and register. So thank you.
Thank you, Beatrice, for a fascinating and instructive exchange on your experiences in Copenhagen. I must say I had the pleasure of meeting Beatrice and her colleagues in the KV Info offices in Copenhagen last month, and had an opportunity to meet some of the mentors and mentees that she works with, and it is truly a very wonderful organization they've created, and your success is very impressive. So we have now concluded the formal presentation part of our webinar, and I see that we've got a whole lot of questions coming in that we're going to get to in a moment. And but it's great to see such an enthusiastic response to today's presentation. And just before we hand the discussion over to our audience for questions, I would like to introduce you briefly to Sangeeta Subramanian, who has an opening question for both of our presenters today. Sangeeta is the project leader of the Allies National Mentoring Initiative here in Canada and has many years of experience with mentoring projects, and I think has personal experience with each of our presenters today. So, Sangeeta, I'll let you talk to Q&A.
Thank you, Kim. Just a little bit of information about the Allies National Mentoring Initiative. It's an initiative that supports urban centers across Canada with developing, implementing, and enhancing mentoring programs for skilled immigrants. Many of our ideas for this initiative have come from a very successful program here in Toronto called the Mentoring Partnership Program of the Toronto Region Immigrant Employment Council, or TRIAC. Mentoring Partnership since 2005 has successfully completed over 4,500 matches with an 80% employment outcome for the mentees that complete the program. In fact, I believe some of the ideas from the Mentoring Partnership have also been used by KV Info in their mentoring program in Copenhagen. Allies also manages the hireimmigrants.ca website, which houses resources for employers be more effective in assessing, recruiting, and retaining skilled immigrants. And we have actually profiled the Upwardly Global workshop on cross-cultural interviewing as one of the resources on the site. So we do have a good connection with both organizations for that presentation. My question, and Sherazad to some extent did touch upon this, is some of the reasons why employers see hiring skilled immigrants as a risk. And how have your programs helped to make some of the systemic changes, so the systems and processes employers use for hiring?
I'm happy to take a first stab at that, Beatrice, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure, please.
So that's a great question, and that's exactly what we try to do at Upwardly Global, is to identify those systemic methods or processes that help eliminate the perception of risk. I mean, what I would start off by saying is that every hire is a risk. So whether it's a skilled immigrant or a local candidate, you just never know, in terms of, is that individual the right individual until they're in the job and you see them working in the job and you see them interfacing and interacting with your clients, amongst your teams. But there seems to be a higher perception of risk for skilled immigrants because of all the unfamiliarities. The hiring process, I think what we've learned, can be quite a personal and emotional process. So even when you try to make it very objective and take out all the opportunities for personal thoughts or motivations to come in, they still sort of weave back in. It's individuals that are looking for, what I always hear when I'm talking to an employer, often hear, I shouldn't say always, is I make the decision not only based on hard skills, can they do the job, but also, is this somebody that I want to have lunch with every day? Is this somebody that I want to spend most of my time with, since that's where we are most of the time is at work? And what we try to do on the job seeker side, which I didn't speak to, is we have a program that works specifically with job seekers, and we coach them to help bridge to an employer so that the employer feels like you may not have a U.S. company name or a U.S. education name, but I feel like I can understand your experience. The way that we do that is we encourage job seekers to have their educational degrees credentialized, essentially stating that my master's degree from India is equivalent to a master's degree from a U.S. institution. So it helps an employer to feel like, okay, I'm getting the same level of talent or training that I would if I was hiring from the local pool. Also, to put a description of the company name. So, J.P. Morgan Chase or a large company might be looking for candidates that have worked in large multinational environments. There are many large multinational companies that don't have a U.S. presence that our partners may not know of. So we encourage job seekers to put under the company name, comparable to this many clients, this many revenues, so that a company can say and see, okay, this is somebody that could fit. On the employer side, it's what we call hand-to-hand combat. It's trying to identify every way to create that education and awareness so that it becomes easier and easier. And it really starts with getting one person in the door, our alumni, that then sort of helps open the door for others and helps champion inside. And we have some great examples of that in some of our current partners where you meet, for one example, one of our job seekers with Spada, who is an auditor at J.P. Morgan Chase. Whenever he meets anybody new at the firm, he says, I came here because of Upwardly Global. Let me tell you about my story. I was an auditor at KPMG in Indonesia, and then I was a barista at Starbucks for 5 years. Not because I wanted to be there, but because I couldn't get in the door. So it's not systemic just yet. We hope that it will become, a network of skilled immigrants that support other skilled immigrants, or a network of global citizens, if you will, that help other global citizens, anybody that relates to the immigrant experience and just wants to be open to that. I hope I've answered your question.
Well, that's great. And Beatrice?
Yes. Well, first I want to thank you, Sangeeta. It's really a great question. Actually, Quinfos Mentor Network is inspired on the mentoring partnership. And to answer your question, I think that what we do is in Denmark is that we focus on the positive stories, and we tell them over and over again at the individual level and at the general level, because there is a lot of stereotyping about immigrants, especially about immigrant women. So by telling the positive stories, we are a cultural institution. We're usually at the center of the cultural debate in Denmark. So by telling these stories and by showing the enormous potential of these women, both employers and the population will get a completely different perspective of what they are. And most people, after they see these cases in our online exhibitions, they go, what a waste of time, what a waste of resources. There must be so many other women and men like this, and we just don't know about it. So I think that by telling the positive stories, we have a contribution in this respect. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's great. That's great. So thank you to both Beatrice and to Sherazade and Icy. We have a whole lot of questions coming in, so we're going to try to move through those questions. They're very interesting. We're going to start with a question from Anne-Marie Marcotte, who is with the Alliés Montréal organization here in Canada. And she writes, what would be the major benefits for a SME, which refers to the small and medium-sized enterprise, to engage in a mentoring program? Time is so short, she says. So Beatrice, maybe would you like to take a stab at that one?
Yes, sure. Well, you know that the composition of the labor market in Denmark is like that. There's an enormous segment of medium and small and medium-sized enterprises. And the fact is that you get a lot of international input by hiring foreign workers. In Copenhagen, particularly, we have our office attends a large group of very highly qualified women, and they come with international experience. They come fresh with new ideas. So it's very invigorated for companies, for small and medium-sized companies which are very homogeneous in composition.
Sherazade?
I was just going to offer that we actually, most of our partners are small and medium-sized enterprises, and the benefit that they gain from mentoring or just partnering with us and some of the other opportunities is that it helps them grow their network. And so while time is limited, I think people can go to different networking opportunities and see that it's usually a lot of consultants trying to sell you something, and you don't really get the value that you might be looking for, especially when time is limited. Through mentoring, you're able to really not only help somebody else, but determine if there's a way to leverage the talent of the individuals that you're working with and also tap into their networks.
Okay. We've got the next two questions I think I'm going to combine and those questions are about mentor motivation and challenges of engaging mentors. So what is the mentor's motivation to become a mentor, and from an organizational point of view, what are the top three challenges involved in engaging mentors? Either one of you?
Well, I'd like to start. You know that I want to go back to my initial question, the one you voted on. You know that we think that mentees do find jobs on their own. They don't need anyone to champion them. We don't expect mentors to get them a job. Okay, something happened to my screen. So you know, from the point of view of the mentors, what they do is they want to make a personal contribution in the case of our mentors, and actually they volunteer. We don't recruit and we don't advertise since the program started. So I believe that both mentor and mentees, when the relationship is very good and is based on these values, these common values, women discover that they have more similarities than difference, and then they both gained from the experience.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sure thing.
I mean, I would probably echo what Beatrice is sharing. Is for the most part, it's individuals that realize they want to have an experience that's values-based, that where they are able to offer insights and support, but we find that many of our volunteers and our mentors share that they gain just as much as they offer. You can tell very quickly if you don't have the right mentor that's engaged or if there's the wrong reasons. And what you have to be willing to do as a program as well is to intervene and make sure that the relationship is healthy for both sides. But for most of the time, it's a self-selection process.
Good. I have a question here from Ratna Amitvar from here in Toronto. She asks, have you had any experience with other forms of mentoring? For example, e-mentoring or group mentoring or the recently much discussed speed mentoring?
We haven't at Upwardly Global. We are exploring group mentoring and e-mentoring, so I would love to hear if anybody has.
Yeah, well, at CRINFO, we haven't experienced with e-mentoring yet, but we do experience with group mentoring. We have sub-networks where mentees and mentors meet in different occasions, and so it's pure mentoring there.
Okay, very good. I have a question now from Peter Slovak, who asks, how can you ensure that immigrants are not seen as a threat to local job seekers who are outside the mentoring process? I guess this is a question that we hear a lot these days in this time of economic turndown.
Yeah. This is Sherazade. I'll take a first stab at this one. That's a really good question, and it's somewhat of a tough question. You know, what I always share when I get this question posed is that we're simply trying to level the playing field and just to have everybody start from the same starting point. You know, I sort of think of track races, and that for many skilled immigrants, they're running an extra lap, and so it's no wonder that they don't cross the finish line and meet with success the same way that other candidates do. They're not meant to be a threat, to the local job seeker market. Simply, they're just simply trying to re-enter their field. The responsibility, I think, of any job seeker is to make sure that they're up to date, that they're current, that they're building their network, and we just help immigrants do that. There's many organizations in the U.S. that help local job seekers do that as well.
Thank you.
Well, in my case, we do believe in Quinfo that good stories, positive stories, are not told enough. And our contribution is keeping on telling the good stories, so nobody really has to be afraid of anybody. There is a job market. There are conditions in the job market. There are obstacles and barriers, but we all have potential and we all have resources. So just by telling the good stories, the positive stories, and deconstructing stereotypes around immigration and about integration, we think that we can do a lot.
Okay, thank you. The question of recruitment is always, is an important question that comes up all the time. We have two questions on that topic today, so that I'm going to bundle together. Peter asks, do large companies seeing mentoring as a viable recruitment strategy? And he asks, to you, Cher, they do track if J.P. Morgan, for example, has hired some of the mentees. And again, I think that would be an interesting question for both of you to address. So the topic is recruitment generally, but how do you measure that? How do you know what's happening with your mentees?
Got you. We have seen some large companies focus specifically on mentoring as a partnership, and that their not their immediate outcome is expected to be recruiting, but that their sort of secondary purpose and outcome is for recruiting. We do track for any of our job seekers that are matched to a mentor that works at a large company or even a small to medium-sized company, whether or not they are making any headway into that organization. And we have seen some of our mentors that have been hired by their mentees' organizations. Again, that classic case of walking down the hall with the resume saying, you've got to meet this individual. I haven't seen it become a widespread recruitment strategy, but for many employers that we work with, it's part of the recruiting strategy.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't recruit mentors or mentees. And our partners are mostly come from the public sector. So we do have partners in every city, in every large city in Denmark, especially the municipalities. And it's a partnership about having a place to have our office, about funds to support the program. But mentors and mentees do join voluntarily. The stories pass from one person to the other, usually, on one-to-one, and they come into our website and they see who we are, and then they join in the program.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Actually, Beatrice, the next question, again on the theme of evaluating the impact of the program in terms of the number of matches, etc. Maybe you could tell us briefly about the incredible system you use to track everything at KV Info and how it's remembered.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. You know that since we are a library, since day one we've been keeping a database where we register the whole story, who the mentee is, who the mentor is, how the match goes, all the stages of the match. And by keeping this record, we are able to tune the program and to see how immigration is changing into Denmark and how integration is also changing, because these are very dynamic processes. So this database is really a wonderful tool, and I think that such a tool is very important to handle a mentoring program, because otherwise, the changes are not taken into consideration and programs stagnate.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. That's great. So we have another question, this time from London. Phoebe Griffiths writes, is there scope for helping less skilled migrants through the mentoring process? And that's a question that addresses another question regarding from one who asked whether Upwardly Global intends to expand the scope of its program.
Regarding the first part of the question about working with less skilled migrants through mentoring, that's not currently our scope, so I wouldn't be able to offer any insights there. And regarding whether Upwardly Global plans to expand its scope of our program, geographically, yes. In the United States, programmatically, meaning our criteria for skilled immigrants, that's something we're considering. If you meant it in another way, I'm not sure. I hope that has answered the question of the individual related to the Upwardly Global question.
Mm-hmm. But on the question of the less skilled migrant and the mentoring, how mentoring may be able to help the less skilled migrant as well as the highly skilled. Maybe they should.
Yes, I'm having a little problem there. Well, in our case, our model works for high-skilled women immigrants and also for those who have been away from the labor market for a long time. Because, in both cases, these are women with resources. So we help women with short education and women who have been away from the labor market for a long time. What we do is we offer some social and emotional support for them to find out what they want. And then once they find out what they want, then we find mentors to help them pursue that way. And that's the way it works.
Okay, very good. We have a couple of questions on screen now, but I'm going to drop down to the one from Lily, who says, sorry, wouldn't it be easier to match mentor-mentee with people that are from the same origin so that at least they can have that in common and mingle more easily? What becomes more important when in networking, origin or real skills and experience? If it was the latter, everyone should be easily hired. No, she asked.
I'm happy to answer that very quickly. We actually find that partnering across cultures or experiences is quite beneficial. What we've realized is that yes, it's beneficial for the personal relationship if it's somebody in the same country or same language because they share that in common. But being that the American workplace is so diverse, and that one, it's important for our job seekers to be connected to people that are different from them as well, since they'll be responsible for interacting successfully with individuals of different backgrounds and languages and styles. And then also, just in business, the way it is that there are certain people that tend to have more power and influence. And so it's important to have a network with somebody that is really a champion or is really an influencer, if you will, that can help you get in the door or get up the ladder. And that's not always going to be an individual, depending on that organization, that has a similar background as you. So we don't specifically focus on that. We focus on what the mentor and mentee, what the mentee needs, and who is the best mentor to provide that.
Yeah, and in our cases, in our program, we don't consider the difference. What we focus is on the similarities. So the cultural difference are not significant. We think that once mentor and mentee share an education, professional interest, when they are willing to work on a dream, the cultural differences are not important, and we really believe that women have more similarities than difference. So the cultural differences are not an issue in our program.
Well, very good. Thank you very much for this fascinating exchange. There are a number of questions that we have not had a chance to answer, but which we will post, and you will be able to find some answers on our website after the program. There is one last comment from Ratna Ahmedvar, which is on a theme that's very close to us here at Cities of Migration, because we are interested in storytelling and telling stories about good integration practice. Ratna comments, it would be very good to document our learnings about the different forms of mentoring that are out there, their relative efficacy and effectiveness to create a learning community. And I know that that both Upwardly Global and KV Info are interested in telling us about the stories of your success, and perhaps you'd like to comment to Ratna and the rest of the audience about why that's important. Beatrice?
So, yeah, I can go first. Well, I have to tell Ratna that what City of Migrations are doing, having these webinars and having this website and telling very good stories, benchmarking stories on integration and immigration is very inspiring. We are trying to do the same in Quinfo, because this is what means documenting experiences. And the fact that people can come and listen to this webinar afterwards is really a very advanced way of telling the story. So I'm very happy that we're here, and I hope that the future will be to creating this learning community you're suggesting.
And I would echo that as well. Ratna, that's a great point. What we've learned is that success breeds success. So, and that also we're able to, some of our partners have already taken the risks that might seem a little scary for someone else to take. And so that's why, another reason why it's important to share the stories. And we share the success stories, but we're also very honest that at times certain things aren't easy. We don't sort of sugarcoat it. With everything that's worth doing, you can't take the short way, if you will. So I think that's another reason to sort of continue to share the stories. It also creates an opportunity for us to learn from others, which we're always open to doing, since there's so much great works, and great ideas out in the communities that we work in. So certainly would be happy to continue sharing, and thank you for allowing us to be here today as well.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, for a wonderful presentation today. Thank you. Our time has run out, so it's time to let you all return to your busy days in Copenhagen and to New York and beyond. So on behalf of all of our participants, I want to thank you, Beatrice, in Copenhagen, and you, Sherazade, in New York, for your stories, your insights, and the expertise that you've shared with us today.